You're live. Greetings, 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 everybody. It's wonderful to see that so many of you are already in the room. It's Robin Banks speaking to you live from my offices in Northcliffe. I am absolutely loving doing webinars. It's a whole new journey for me, and I'm very, very excited. Today's topic is about financial success for 2018 and beyond. I'm here with my good friend, Brian Walsh, who is going to be co-presenting the event with me. I'll introduce him to you shortly. So he's on the back burner. Very excited to be here with you guys. And also just to let you know who else is in the room is Yvette, my trusty business manager who runs my life. And it's always great to have her here and her support. So the three of us are here with you tonight. We're going to be together for the next 90 minutes maximum, and the focus of our presentation is to speak about financial success for 2018 and beyond. The focus of tonight's presentation is to assist you to make sure that 2018 is going to be your bestest year ever financially. But we don't just want that to be a theory, we want that to be a reality. And in a moment, I'll tell you exactly why I've got Brian here, because he brings something to the puzzle that I do not bring. My main focus, as most of you know, is mind power. And I believe that wealth creation is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. But Brian is really a genius in what he does, but I'll tell you about that shortly. But right now, this is exactly what I want to hear. I see many of you checking in on the chat box. And so please, if I could ask you just very quickly to say where you're from, because I love to just see who's online. We're using Webinar Jam this time, so it's different. So, but I can still see in the chat box. So who I've got here, we've got Potty from Shelley Beach. We've got Yanni, who's checking in. We've got another Robin from Joburg. We've got Frederica, Carmen, Tulani, Roland, Serena, Karen from Cape Town, Sean from I don't know where, Brian. Oh, it's coming in so quickly. All right, I'm not going to be able to check you guys because oh my goodness, it's happening so quickly. But this is so awesome because now I know you're online. So Amanzim Toti, and we've got Ashton over there, Chantel from Cape Town, Rian from Pretoria. I think we've got close to 300 people in the website. So I'm not going to be able to speak to everybody individually. But as you're doing right now, that's exactly what I want you to do, is you get to type your question in. Oh, Pietra from Cape Town. Hey, Pietra. Nice to see you online. And Theresa. Okay, I get so carried away, by the way, but I can see Brian laughing at me. But for those of you who know me, I thrive on being around people. I get my energy from people. So I get so distracted by what you guys are typing right now. We've got Aisha from Port Elizabeth and Lawrence. So guys, welcome. Please do keep checking in. As I said to you, for those of you who may still be coming into the room, we are going to be speaking about financial success for 2018 and beyond. I'm sure many of you will agree with me that the world is going through an incredible amount of change. Our country, South Africa, is facing an incredible... Oh, I believe we've got some people from London here, by the way, as well. But our country, South Africa, is going through a lot of change. And Brian and I thought, what can we do to help people, particularly with their financial consciousness? So the focus of tonight is to assist you to make 2018 your best year ever. What we're going to be speaking about on this webinar tonight, and what you will learn, is we're going to ask you to learn what is actually holding you back from financial success, and more importantly, how can you overcome it? That's my piece of the puzzle, and I'm excited to share that with you. But the other two pieces is learn the only guaranteed way to achieve financial freedom. By the way, how many of you are keen on financial freedom? Is there anybody in this webinar who's not keen on financial freedom? I don't think you'd be here. And then the last one is learn how we protect ourselves from political and economic turmoil. Hey, we are suffering, Manish. We have got political turmoil. So we've got many challenges. So that's the focus of the webinar. But at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, Brian Walsh. And he runs a company called The Real Entrepreneur. I'd like to start off by telling you when I first met Brian, he came to speak to me. Geez, Brian, I think it was like 7 years ago. Brian came to speak to me at my home in Johannesburg. And Brian had this vision of reaching thousands and hundreds of thousands of people in South Africa. And I remember thinking, this guy doesn't know what it takes to fill a room. Because what most of you guys don't know, when you come to my sessions and you'll see 1,000 people in the room, it takes a lot of effort to put 1,000 people in the room. And I thought, Brian's got a wonderful idea. He's a nice guy, but I don't think he knows what it takes. Well, 3 years later, Brian put on the biggest event in South Africa, put on by a South African. We did an event called the Real Success Experience. It was in 2013, and we had close to 3,000 people in the room. It was one of the biggest events I've ever done. He's done many, many events doing that. So what I really love about Brian is that he's a man who has a vision, but he also knows how to apply his vision and make it a reality. He runs a business which is called The Real Entrepreneur. Many of you online actually know Brian, and you're from his database. And why Brian is here, so my focus is on the 80% of psychology. I'll be speaking to you about how to get your mindset right for wealth creation. But Brian's focus is about financial success through business and helping people to become great entrepreneurs. Also, what I appreciate about Brian's focus is that Brian has been mentored by some of the wealthiest people on the planet, and I literally mean that. In fact, just as we were preparing for this webinar over the last hour or so, he was saying stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I mean, I need to learn what this is. So he brings a wealth of knowledge, and it's a great pleasure to share this with you. So Brian, great to have you on the webinar. So guys, I want to hand you over to Brian for the next little while so you can find out who he is.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's good to be with you, and thanks for Robin for introducing me in a way that's quite original and new. And I love the story about that big event, because I think I got as much of a fright as you did when we filled 3,000 people in that room. We weren't so sure, eh? But anyway, it was great. Yeah, so I want to ask a couple of questions before we get going. And the first question is, who wants to be financially independent? So I would suggest we can't see you and hear you, but animate as best as you can in the way that you type it. How serious are you about wanting to be financially independent one day? So tell us in the chat box. By the way, Robin, they can all see the answers as well, unlike on GoToWebinar. So everyone can actually see Robin's answers.
Awesome.
So that's kind of cool, yeah. So tell us who's really, really committed to being financially independent with their life and business.
Me. Very serious. Yes. Hi, Brian and Robin. Yes, definitely me. Yes, yes. Okay, so you guys can see this. I didn't know you could see me, please. Okay.
That's cool. That's one of the nice things about this platform. It's a bit different to the other one we use. But okay, so clearly, I mean, that's ideally why you should have come here. We said talk about financial success. You would assume that the reason you're here is because you want to be financially successful. Now, I can tell you that one of my mentors who has spoken to literally hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people around the world, he's asked this question often, and I've done the same in big seminar rooms. And we always joke that 99% of the people, if you ask them who wants to be financially independent, 99% of the people say yes, and the other 1% didn't understand the question, or they just weren't listening, because there's always a few, And so at the end of the day, everyone wants to be financially independent. But let me ask you this: are you doing what you need to do to become financially independent one day? And this is the trick question. Because, the majority of people are extremely badly, for lack of a better English word, I'm not doing so well with English late in the week like this. Majority of people actually struggle with the behavior around money. Most people have, and Robin's going to talk about the mental blocks, most people are conditioned terribly with money. And so the truth is, we all want to be financially independent. This is what's so fascinating. 0.23% of the population achieves financial independence. And that doesn't mean that they're rich. I just want to be clear about that. That just means that they retire with enough for them to survive for the rest of their life.
0.23%.
0.23%. So at the end of the day, if there were 1,000 people in the room, we would take 2 1/3, and we would bring them up to the stage, and we'd say, this is how many people, according to statistics, are going to become financially independent out of this room of 1,000 people. So 99% of you want financial independence, but only a fraction of you are actually going to achieve it. And that's because you actually don't know how to answer this question. Because if I took it deeper and I said, what are you doing in order for you to become financially independent one day, and you're not sure? And so that's what we need to address, and that's what I'm going to really pick up. Let me just start by asking, before I'm going to give it to Robin, he can work on this. How much do you think is enough for you to be financially independent? Share with us just and I know everyone can see it, but they can only see your first name. So if you don't have to fuss about it. Don't tell us how much you earn, because then everyone will see it. But tell us how much you think enough accumulatively is for you to be financially independent one day. How much money should you have? How much should your net worth be for you to be truly financially independent one day? Share the numbers with us, because we'd love to hear. Millions. Okay?
Millions. Nicole, be more specific. Millions.
Millions of what as well? It's about a 30 second.
10 million rand, 5 million rand.
5, yeah. 100 million.
100 million, 20 million. We have 20 million. Is there 3 million, 100,000 K passive, 2 million, 33 million, 25 million, 10 million. Tired of suffering, 30 million, 6 million, 45 million, 5 million, 160K residual happiness, 6-figure income, 5 million. Is that 3 million? 3 million, 20 million, 20 million, 50 million, residual income, 15 million.
Now, I want to point out, because you can see these answers, right? How different they are. Now, I love the people that say I want a certain income per month. Let me tell you in simple terms. And what I teach you, I don't consider myself wealthy. Even Robin, we don't. We're pretty well off compared to most people. But in terms of true wealth, we talk about the accumulation of net worth to such an extent that you would never have to work again, right? That's actually what financial independence means. That the assets you have, particularly in liquid form, pay you more than you would pay yourself or somebody else would pay you to work. All right. Now, here's the interesting thing. A lot of people don't know an equation that makes that a reality. So we go, listen, if I had 100,000 rand a month, I'd be fine. Okay, not for me, but if I had $1 million rand a month, I'd be fine, or whatever the case might be. But how much would you need in order to earn that amount of money? Now, I'm not going to go through, there's a whole calculation to go through, but it takes too long. I want most of you to understand, if you are around the age of 45 or younger, okay, and it's a generalization, but I want you to understand this, because only about 2 people actually said this. All right, out of all the people, I like the 20 billion. Somebody's talking real money there. That must be, it depends what currency that's in. The truth is that you need to look at accumulating about 100 million rand in personal net worth. Okay, so, and I want you to get that, because a lot of you are thinking, like, if I can have 5 million, if I can have 2 million, if I can have 10 million, I'll be fine. You won't be fine. You're going to need to look at accumulating enough money so that that money will pay you enough to have a great lifestyle. So in current terms, if you had 100 million and you were earning very conservatively, we're not talking about anything that's high risk or anything that involves losing your potential, capital. But if you could earn 5%, which just about any decent financial person will be able to get, for you quite easily. I mean, I'm sure you can do a bit better. But if you had 5%, if you had 100 million and you earn 5% a year, you'd have 5 million a year to live off. And now some of you are going to go like, yeah, that's too much. I don't need 5 million to live off. But I'm telling you that if we actually equate it, if we look at you in 20, 30, 40, 50 years time, and we have to be realistic that that's a possibility of an age we might get to, you're going to need, as much as 6, 7, 8 times more than you currently need to survive each year, you're going to need every year. And that's just from inflation. So, we do not think in big enough numbers. We are conditioned to think in small numbers. And we think, depending on our lifestyle, depending on where we are in our lives. And I remember when I used to think 5 million. I remember when I used to think 1 million, and think these were big numbers. But they're not. In terms of financial freedom, they're not. So I want you guys to really start thinking bigger numbers. And this is actually what's going to lead me into Robin talking about the thing that's holding us back the most, which I'm tapping at the moment, but you can't see, which is our head. Because it starts with the fact that we don't even think in big enough numbers. We're never going to achieve. I mean, if our goal is to have 10 million rand and we get to 70 and we've got 10 million rand, we're going to go, well, we're going to have it subsidized, or we're going to have to live in a little cottage. Because it might be okay when you're 65 or even 70, but if you get to 80 or 90, your lifestyle is going to be so much more expensive and you're not going to have enough capital to actually fund it. So you're going to have to use the capital. And then, God forbid, my dad told me the other day, he turns 80 on Monday. And he said, Brian, I planned everything for 80 because he was convinced he would not live longer than 80. And he's as healthy as anything, and he turns 80 on Monday. So, yeah, exactly. And so the truth is, when my financial advisors that are all exceptionally wealthy people say, listen, plan to at least 100. At least 100. And so ideally, you don't want to be using capital. You want the capital to pay you to live for the rest of your life. That way, it doesn't matter if you get to 120, you'll still be fine. So I want you to think bigger numbers. So Robin, let's talk about this biggest block in people's minds, because as you know, with Robin Banks, the biggest block is your mind itself. So let's just talk about this, because I mean, you've done this in your own life, so it's probably good for you to share your story. But I mean, you also kind of, when I was talking about this earlier, were going, maybe you're not even thinking big enough, in terms of that net worth context. And so what do we do? Like, what has to happen from this mind perspective that's going to shift this?
So, as you know, I'm just listening to Brian here with you guys, and I don't know how many of you are feeling similarly, but you suddenly go, whoa, like seriously? And it is very true that I do agree that we just do not think in big enough numbers. And I'd like to share my personal story with you. And the reason I want to share my personal story is not to impress you, but rather to impress upon you and help you realize that I believe that wealth creation is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. You've got to have the right mindset in order to be financially successful. First, you have to have the right beliefs. You have to have the right thoughts. And so I believe that wealth creation is 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. And I want to tell you my personal story because, as John said earlier, as Brian said earlier, I wouldn't regard myself as a wealth guru. And I really want to say that very clearly on this webinar. I wouldn't regard myself as a boffin in terms of wealth creation. However, I have been very blessed in that if I have to look at where I was and where I am today, I'm living a very different lifestyle. And I know that's a direct relation or direct result of learning to change my mindset and my beliefs around wealth creation. So just to give you my story, most of you will probably know it, but I did the Mind Power course with John Keogh, who is my mentor, in May 1999. At the time, I was earning 5,000 Rand a month. And the main reason I chose to do the Mind Power course, it was the number one reason, is I was sick and tired of being broke. I was just like, I've tried it and I just don't like being broke. And I made a conscious decision to become financially successful. And I had to deal with a lot of judgment from my spiritual friends because I lived in a spiritual community for 15 years of my life. And my spiritual friends really didn't take too kindly to me consciously choosing to be financially successful. And I eventually thought, well, whose life is it? It's my life. And I believe it's possible to be financially successful and a spiritual being as well. So I was earning 5,000 Rand a month. I was working full-time for a company doing a youth leadership program, and I was paid 5,000 Rand a month for that. On the side, I was doing a workshop called Victim to Victor, and I was paid 1,000 Rand a day for doing the Victim to Victor workshop. And up until that point, I think the best month I'd had was 3 extra workshops, which meant my 5,000 Rand income was 8,000 Rand. That was the best I'd had. The very next month, after I did the Mind Power course, and I swear on my father's grave, this is a true story, the very next month, I quadrupled my income and I earned 20,000 Rand. I earned 5,000 Rand part-time, and I earned 5,000 Rand full-time, and I earned 15,000 Rand part-time. That's what made me realize that the mind is an amazing asset that you want to learn to work with in order to control and direct your thoughts and manifest wealth creation. So I started my business in the year 2000, and I've been extremely blessed ever since then. I remember at the time, I think I used to charge 2,000 Rand a day for a workshop. And then I think it went up to like 4,000 Rand a day, 5,000. And I'll never forget earning 8,000 Rand a day. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am smoking hot. I am earning 8,000 Rand a day. And I started doing public speaking for corporate clients. And the lady who agreed to take me on was a lady by the name of Marie Gray. She is one of my agents. And I came up to Joburg to meet with her. And I said, please, would she represent me? And she said, Robin, you're going to have to come up to Joburg on you're going to have to pay for the flights. It's going to be a free seminar. Once I've seen you speak, we'll decide if you're going to be one of my speakers on my list. Anyhow, I went back to Cape Town. She phones me 3 days later. She says, you're a very lucky man. I said, yes, I know I'm lucky, because, by the way, that's a good belief to have. Believe you're lucky. I am very lucky. And and basically what happened is one of her clients wanted 10 speakers and she only had 9. And so she said, I'm putting you forward as my 10th speaker. And she says, you better be good. Cheapers did I prepare for that talk. And then what blew me away is here I am earning 8,000 Rand a day. And she charged them 10,000 Rand an hour. And I went, 10,000 Rand an hour? Shit, I better be good. I was like, oh my gosh, I better be good. Needless to say, I nailed the talk. I nailed it. And I was actually voted the best speaker of the conference, which was a great thing because then she started putting me out. So suddenly I went from earning 8,000 Rand a day to 10,000 Rand an hour. I was like, my goodness, I didn't know it's possible to earn 10,000 Rand an hour. And then a couple of years later, I put my prices up and 10,000 Rand became 12,000 Rand an hour. And it was in 2005. I did a talk in Bangkok for Bidvest. And I got a standing ovation from 400 of the Bidvest CEOs and their spouses or their spice, because there were lots of spouses. So I got the standing ovation. Brian Joffe got up and he said, forget Tom Peters, we've got Robin Banks and he's local. And I immediately, while they were standing and clapping, turned to my business manager and I said, by the way, we now charge 15,000 Rand an hour. And I was like, and I'd written down my goals. So I went from 12 to 15,000 Rand. And then I thought to myself, well, imagine if one day I could charge 20,000 Rand an hour. Imagine if I could charge 20,000 Rand an hour. I was like, man, who's going to pay me to it? But I wrote it down as one of my goals. One day I'll charge 20,000 Rand an hour. Within about a year and a half to 2 years, I was charging 18,000 Rand an hour. And then 18 became 20, 20 became 25,000 Rand an hour, 25 became 27 and a half, 27 and a half became 30, 30 became 33, 35. Today, I'm charging myself out at 40,000 Rand an hour. Now, I'm not sharing that to boast. I'm sharing that to show you what's possible because I was earning 5,000 Rand a month. So for those of you who might have had the same experience I did when Brian mentioned that figure of 100 million, because to be honest with you, that's a big figure. That's a huge figure. And you should be kind of like going, what? What is he talking about? Because right now your mind possibly cannot conceive of that kind of money. But that's exactly what I want you to do. You see, the level of thinking that you currently have right now is not going to create your success. You need to be thinking in a completely different way. And here's the best part. Those of you who've worked with me and those of you who've done my Mind Power course will know that the most important thing is you want to influence the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is not the one that's running the show. The conscious mind is the one that we use for thinking, analyzing, planning, decision-making. But the real master is the subconscious mind. And so I'm going to give you a tool right now. Those of you who know me will know this tool, but I'm going to challenge you. Are you using it? And here's the tool I'm going to give every single one of you. If all you take from me, from this particular webinar, is this particular tool I'm about to share with you, and you actually apply it, I guarantee you results. Just apply this and you'll see results. So I want to teach you a couple of affirmations. I'm going to speak to you about two of my most favorite affirmations. The first affirmation that I want to speak to you about is John Keogh's affirmation. It comes from a product called Creating an Abundance of Money. It's a CD that, it's not my CD, it's my mentor CD. It's an affirmation visualization CD. How many of you have it, by the way? Do any of you online have the Creating an Abundance of Money CD?
I've got it.
Oh, I'm just checking if any of you have it, but you can just type in there. But it's one of the best products I've ever used on wealth creation. And if anybody asks me, what's the one thing I can do for wealth creation? I'll say, buy the Creating an Abundance of Money CD and play it every single day. Even if you play it for 5 days out of 7, just play that CD over and over again. Now, here's the first one. I see many of you have got it. It's a great product. So how many of you know what's the first affirmation? Please let me know. What is the first affirmation on creating an abundance of money? Who's going to win the booby prize? What is the first one? Let me know. What is the first affirmation? Come, you guys are all saying you got it, you need it.
About a 30-second.
What's the first one? Eh?
It's about a 30-second delay.
Is there a 30-second delay? No, that's the second one, Ashton. My subconscious mind is my partner in success. That's the second one. What's the first affirmation? There we go. Okay, the first person I think of, the first one that came through was Tamsin. Is that Tamsin? Hey, Tamsin, how you doing? So the first one is I am tremendously successful. Now, I want to tell you a story about this. I remember driving in a little Volkswagen Beetle. I'm earning 5,000 Rand a month. I'm driving in a Beetle with a leaking roof, and I am saying this affirmation out loud. I am tremendously successful. I am tremendously successful. Now, the weirdest part is I'm driving around in a Beetle with a leaking roof, earning 5,000 Rand a month. And my conscious mind is going, no, you're not. You're not tremendously successful. You've got more month at the end of the money. But here's a very important point. The subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. I'm going to say that again. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So do me a favor, and many of you have done this with me before, do it again. Close your eyes, unless you're driving. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself on a beach in the Maldives right now. Put yourself there. If you don't know the Maldives, any beach. But see yourself on a beautiful beach with white, white sand. The water is so clear you can see the fish swimming under the ocean. There's blue skies up above you. Palm trees are swaying in the wind. The temperature's balmy and perfect on your skin. You've got a cocktail in your hand and you've got a beautiful person next to you. And life is just peachy. Okay, you can open your eyes. You can open your eyes and come back. I know some of you are going, wait, Robin, is lekker by die see, lekker by die see. Now, I'm willing to bet that 90% of you saw yourself on a beach in the Maldives right now. Now, here's the weirdest part. The conscious mind knows you're not there. The conscious mind is going, hey, wake up. You are not on the beach in the Maldives. You are listening to this monkey. But the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. It believed you were there. So how do we use this to our advantage? We feed our mind with thoughts over and over again, programming it. I am tremendously successful. I said that affirmation over and over and over again until gradually I became more and more successful. Now, I need to tell you something else about the CD because I see many of you have it. How many of you think that I still listen to that CD? Or how many of you think I don't listen to it? What do you guys think? Do you think I still listen to it? Or do you think I don't listen to it? So, I'll let you guys in on a little bit of a secret. I used that affirmation consistently, that CD, for 2 years. I listened to it pretty much every single day. Renate, okay, most of you are absolutely right. I do. I still listen to that CD. In fact, I listened to it this morning. I listened to it yesterday. I listened to it last week. Why? Why? Because if I want to reach the figures that I want to reach, my mind still needs expanding. It hasn't changed. Now, I've changed a lot. From 5,000 Rand a month to 40,000 Rand an hour. I'm not ashamed to tell you I'm a dollar multimillionaire. I'm a dollar multimillionaire. That is my financial worth. But I still think that there's another level. When I look at Tony Robbins and what he's achieving, the guy's worth $6 billion. Am I right, Brian?
No, he's worth $500 million, personal net worth. His companies do about $8 billion turnover.
Okay, so he's worth $500 million. But his companies are worth?
Well, his companies do about $8 billion turnover.
Now that's another level. Like, I mean, even that, it's just like, oh my God, that is amazing. I also remember that the very first time I saw Tony Robbins, I went because one of the reasons was I wanted a mentor. And someone said, Tony's the best, go see Tony. And I'll never forget being in New York and there are 4,000 people in the room. And I was depressed at a Tony Robbins event. Were you also? Why were you depressed?
I don't know. It's like every time I go there, I go through this phase of depression because he triggers certain things in subconsciously that, put me in this place. And when I was there, also in New York, not the same one that you were at, but in 2012, I remember when he actually asked, before I felt this essence of depression later on in the day, that he asked, like, who's depressed after he had hyped the whole crowd up for like hours, And I said, how could somebody be depressed? Because when I say I'm depressed, I mean, I'm just not in a nice state of mind because stuff's going nuts. And yet so many people put up their hands. And, I think the key is that the reason I believe Tony's stuff works is because in that experience that you have around him, you literally go through an emotional, you go through all these different emotions. I don't know,
roller coaster,
up and down. Yeah, it's like crazy. And without even, and it's so subconscious.
But why were you? Why were you? Do you remember? You don't know.
In that particular case, I think it was related to a relationship, and he brought somebody up on stage who said certain things that for the first time in my life I realized how I was in a relationship. How she
saw yourself.
Boyfriend, I saw myself, and I think I was handling this anyway, and I think I just allowed myself to feel what I was feeling. So it was actually like during one of the breaks, and I think I went back to my hotel for a while, and I realized I'm not in a great space. So I came back later and spent more time with him. You got
shifted. Now you shift your states.
But it was like I dealt with something.
Well, would you guys like to hear why I was depressed? Because I went to see Tony Robbins, and my number one reason was I needed someone that I could look up to, so I could live up to a new standard. And I was just starting out. It was 2003. I just started teaching Mind Power. I thought I was the bee's knees because I'd just done a Mind Power in Cape Town for 220 people. And I thought I was kicking ass. And here I am in New York with Tony Robbins. He's got 4,000 people in the room, and the room is on fire. And I remember standing back and looking at him going, I just could never be this good. He's just too good. I just I couldn't see myself being able to do what he was doing. And so I actually just felt like giving up. I was just like, everyone told me Mind Power changed their life. And I was like, yeah, but look at this. This is like another level. And so I actually felt a bit depressed. However, I came back from the event and my business grew. I came back from another event, my business grew. I spent so much money on Tony Robbins. I always say to people, Tony Robbins, part of his millions, I gave him $1 million. Of course, it means nothing to him, but I spent over $1 million on Tony. And asked me if I regret it, not at all. I know you spent a lot of money on Tony too, and other people as well. But here's the point I'm trying to make. Fast forward to 2007, and I'm in an event with Tony Robbins in Australia. And there's about 3,000 people in the room. And I'm standing on the side of the room. And as I'm standing on the side of the room's rocking. And for the first time, I felt like Neo in the Matrix. Because I started thinking, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah, it's not, look, it is up there, but I can do this. Fast forward to 2012, and I did my first talk for 5,000 people, and the room was rocking. It was amazing. Having said that, he now does events for 14 and 18,000. So he just keeps setting the bar higher. But why am I sharing that story with you? I share that story with you that for those of you who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed and discouraged right now, it's actually a good place to be because you want to shake up your current state and say, hey man, I need to do something. Because if I want to get to where I want to get to, there's always another level. So I keep using the Creating an Abundance of Money CD because I've achieved, this has been one of the best years in my business ever, thanks to Yvette. But it has. By the way, we've worked for it. And as you know, the economy's not been great, but we've had to give specials to you guys. I've realized by the way, one of the things I learned from Tony, I'm taking too much of Brian's time. I'm almost there, Brian. But one of the things I've learned from Tony, and he said, I'll never forget him saying this. If you want to make more money, add more value. I'll say that again. If you want to make more money, add more value. Give more. Because as you give, so shall you receive. And it's one of the principles we've applied a lot this year. Like, okay, how can we give people so much value that that's what's going to make them grow, which makes us grow? It's a huge win-win. So here's an affirmation I recommend. For those of you who want to get the Creating an Abundance of Money CD, you go and do that. But if all you do is just say that over and over again in the shower for 5 minutes, I am tremendously successful. My other favorite affirmation, and this one I learned from the great
Where can they get this? They can go to your website.
Yeah, it's on my website, robinbanks.casa. robinbanks.co.za. You can download it from the shop. I think it's 220 rand. If you pay the download, it's 180. It's a no-brainer in terms of what you're going to get from it. But I didn't want to sell my CD, but it is available for those of you who want to take action on it. The number one financial affirmation I got from Susie Orman. Most of you will know it, but I listened to this affirmation CD. I went to see Susie Orman in 2003, I think it was. 2002, 2003. Actually, no, 2004. Let me think back. Anyhow, point I'm trying to make is that I remember she was charging like 500 rand in 2004 for a 2-hour talk. And I remember thinking, that's ridiculous. How can she charge 500 Rand for a 2-hour talk? I mean, that's absurd. It's just crazy. How can one possibly get value? And then another thing I learned from Tony, Tony's getting a lot of plug-ins today, but I always like to give credit where it's due. I always remember Tony Robbins saying that if you go to a talk, and by the way, for those of you on this webinar, and he says, if you just take one thing, it might be worth you being there for a day. He says, like, he used to go to some seminars and some of them were so boring. And he'd sit there and he'd go, okay, what's one thing I can take from this? Just one. And he says that made it all worthwhile. So, oh, that point was useful. I'll use that all. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to pay 500 Rand because it is Susie Orman. And it was at the Holiday Inn in Strand Street. It was the Holiday Inn then. I think it's the Southern Sun now. But I paid 500 Rand to go and see her. And I took more than one thing. But if I had known how much this affirmation was going to change my life, and those of you who have got my personal mastery, if I'd known how much this CD was going to change my life, I'm not joking, I would have paid 10,000 Rand for that talk because I took one thing. I took more, but here's what I took. Susie Orman told a story. She says that when she was a stockbroker, she was hired as a stockbroker because it was a BEE appointment. They needed women to fulfill the stockbroker. There were too many men and they needed women. So they didn't really want her, but they hired her as a stockbroker and they paid her 2,000 Rand a month. But she knew that there were stockbrokers who were doing the same job who were earning 30,000 Rand a month. And she thought, well, if they're earning 30,000 Rand a month, surely I can earn at least 10,000 Rand a month. So she created the following affirmation. She realized that deep in her subconscious mind, she had a belief system that she'd never be financially independent, that she'd be dependent on a man to look after her. And she thought, this is BS, belief system. I need to change my belief system and create a new one. So she created the following affirmation, and here's what it is. I am financially independent and earn at least $10,000 per month. I am financially independent and earn at least $10,000 per month. She said it over and over again. She wrote it 25 times. She read it 25 times. She said it 25 times. She did it every single day. And then she said to us, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad I said at least because she didn't limit it. So I thought, okay, if this works for Susie, it could work for Robin. At the time, my business was generating 15 to 20,000 Rand a month. That was like the average, if you take out the whole year. It was higher and lower, but that, for those of you who run your own business, it goes up and down. But call it 20,000 Rand a month. So I thought, well, surely I can earn 30,000. I mean, if I'm earning 20, 15, 20, I can earn 30. So in the shower, good place to do your affirmations in the shower. I call it Shower and Empower. I started saying the following affirmation. I am financially independent and earn at least 30,000 Rand per month. And I remember thinking, whoa, that would be so cool. I am financially independent and earn at least 30,000 Rand per month. I said it every single day. 6 months later, I swear to God, I started earning 30,000 Rand a month consistently. Now, it's pointless to keep saying an affirmation once it's become real. So I thought, well, if I could do 30, no. Do you think I could do 50,000 Rand a month? I'm like, I've got nothing to lose. I'm standing in the shower anyway. So I started saying, I am financially independent and earn at least 50,000 Rand per month. And the feeling, remember, for those of you on Mind Power graduates, you want to create the feeling of what it would feel like to earn 50,000 Rand. Because you walk very differently when you're earning 50,000 or earning 5,000. Money gives you confidence. I'm sorry, I'll give you one thing. I'll tell you one thing. Financial success. In John's CD, Creating an Abundance Money, he actually says, feel the confidence and pride that comes from being financially successful. And it does. When you have money, you walk differently. And I thought, I am financially independent, earn at least 50. And I created this feeling of 50,000 Rand a month. 6 months later, I swear to God, I started earning 50,000 Rand a month. I'm like, this stuff is amazing. I thought, no. Do you think it could work? No, come on. Well, I thought, what the hell? I've got nothing to lose. And I went for the big leap. And I started saying, I am financially independent and earn at least 100,000 Rand per month. Per month. 100,000 Rand per month. It took about 10 months. I started earning 100,000 Rand a month. I won't tell you what I say today. Let's just say it's in dollars because it's a different, but I do still say that affirmation. So here's what I'm giving you. If all you take from this webinar from me tonight, say this affirmation every single day. I am financially independent and earn at least X amount per month. Now, don't say X. Otherwise, you're going to get a check at the end of the month with an X. Think about how much money you're earning right now. Now, what Susie did say, which was useful, she said you need to be realistic about the business you're working in. That if there's a ceiling, then that means something's going to have to change in order for you to produce that. In fact, my girlfriend started, many years ago, my girlfriend started saying I'm financially independent and at least 20,000 Rand a month. No, 50,000 Rand. She was earning 20,000 Rand a month. She started saying I'm financially independent at least 50,000 Rand a month. She said it over and over again. And then she got a job offer for 50,000 Rand a month. It just happened to be in New Zealand. She took the job. She's not my girlfriend anymore. But so here's what I'm encouraging you to do. Ladies and gentlemen, if all you take from me today, start saying this every morning in the shower, but you have to think about where you are right now. Please don't go from 5,000 Rand a month to 100,000 Rand a month. You could, but what you want to do is you want to give your mind a bone to chew on. So maybe go from 5 to 10, 10 to 20. When Lyra did my Mind Power course, she told me that she was earning 2,000 Rand a month when she did Mind Power. Did you know Lyra's one of my graduates? She was earning 2,000 Rand a month. She then went from 2 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and my funniest one, 30 to 32. I was like, what happened? How'd you go from 30 to 32? She said, I started doubting myself. And of course, now she earns six-figure incomes. But I mean, and I'm very proud. That's one of my students, Lyra Mapru. So I think everybody's got that clear. Here's what I recommend that you do. Say that affirmation. Now, I do think in fact, Brian's got another one, so I'm going to hand over to Brian. But what I want to say to you, don't just talk about being financially successful, actually do something.
Yeah, an affirmation that I got from my good friend John DeMartini, which I say all the time when I'm driving. I just, it's I'm a multimillionaire money magnet. Everything I touch turns to gold. John, who was a nobody, 35 years ago, he actually became a successful speaker, but he still wasn't very wealthy. And when he made the decision, I want to be wealthy, because he's one of the wealthiest speakers out there today in our industry, right, by a long shot. And he made that decision to become wealthy. He adopted this affirmation. And you talk about you still saying, he still says that today. And John is financially independent like 15 years ago, right? So he's amassed enough wealth. I mean, it's crazy. And so I think it's just find an affirmation that works. The one that Robin tells you about is very, very critical to your earning because it's getting that number bigger. I have on my wall in my office $31 million. I know you asked me why is it $31 million? It's a long story, but I have it like literally stuck across the whole wall in my office. And every time I look at it, I go, yes, baby. And I remember doing that with 10 million Rand. A few years ago when, I never made anywhere near that. I said 10 million Rand. And I almost forgot it was there, but obviously, subconsciously I'm seeing it all the time. And I remember when we actually looked at the business and said, hey, we made more than 10 million Rand this month. And it was like,
this month. Did you guys hear that? Eh? This month.
So it was like, it's like, and then I realized like how much just having those numbers, those bigger numbers, like 31 million is 400 million Rand, what's actually 400 and something million Rand. And, and it was just like I was traveling to America and I just thought, I want to buy a place in New York and I don't want a little place. I had a little place. I want something serious. And so I started to work out, and then the number came into my head like a vision. And I started to work out whether $31 million would be enough for the things that I wanted and to have enough money to have complete financial independence for West Mile. So, and it was, because it's like 400, 500 million. But it's like, you've got to get those numbers up, whichever way you use. And affirmations, I know it sounds so simple and people go, come on, does affirmations really work? You've got a lot of work to recondition your brain, and affirmations are profoundly powerful from that. I just want to share quickly with you guys 5 keys to financial freedom. Okay. Now, like I said to Robin earlier, I'm not a wealth guru either. I've learned particular methodologies and particular strategies, and I've learned them from people that are worth $10 million, $50 million, $100 million. I've even got a friend who's worth $3.2 billion. Wow. I remember when I first spoke to him, you've actually met him. And when I first spoke to him the first time, they set up the Skype meeting with him. And, you're like sitting there like, and he comes on the Skype meeting and he goes, Brian, before we start, can I ask you something? I remember saying to myself, as long as it's got nothing to do with money, I'm fine, because you don't expect a billionaire to ask you a question, especially about money. But anyway, the first thing I want you to learn that's critical about keys to financial freedom is exactly what that gentleman was doing. because this is the thing that we don't realize, all right? And this is learn. You know, the best advice I ever got that turned my life around in 2012. I got the advice 5 years before. I just only paid attention to it in 2012. I knew it intellectually for all those years. I just never did anything with it. And it came from somebody who was very well. I called him my friend at the time. I'm, you know, pleased to admit he is a good friend of mine now, and he calls me a friend. But because he was very wealthy, I learned that wealthy people don't really hang out with poor people, Robin. It's not really fair, but, you know, and so he was more of an acquaintance, you know, which I was very privileged to have access to. But he gave me this piece of advice, and he said, listen, learn everything. He said, you want to succeed with money, learn everything that you can about how to make more money, manage it better, and how to save it to create wealth. And it was the second part that actually transformed my life, because it was, don't stop until your life illustrates that you've got it. And it was, you know, this is profound in anything that you want to learn. The whole point is that at the end of the day, we might know stuff intellectually. You might listen to Robin, you might listen to me, you might listen to Tony, you might listen to all types of people, and you go like, I know this. You know, you hear your little voice and you go, I know this. And he's like, you listen, if your life doesn't illustrate that you know, you don't know squat. So like I knew a lot of stuff about how to be wealthy and how to manage money because I was surrounded by these incredible people. But my life didn't illustrate squat because I was broke and miserable financially, you know. So at the end of the day, don't accept that you just know it intellectually. You need to keep learning. And I mean, if you've got have I got power? Sorry, is there a power cable? I forgot to put my power in. You've got to learn it quickly, because I think it's going to cut out shortly if we don't. You've got to learn that your life, until your life illustrates it, you don't really know it. And if you have to hear it 100 times, then you hear it 100 times. This is the same as affirmations. I mean, I know you read books over and over again. You listen to things over and over. We go to seminars over and over again. We don't accept that we know it just because we understood it intellectually. And I think that's the critical component. Sorry, guys, we're just doing a quick job here to make sure that the presentation doesn't go off. There we go. Thank you very much. You guys can actually see it coming up there. Is the power on? Is it on? Looks like there's no lights on that one. Let me try that one. It was on, but it keeps coming back and saying it's not on. Guys, just give me 1 sec. Rob, it's not on. Now it's on. Okay. Don't move. Don't move.
Okay, cool. All right, sorry, Brian.
Not a problem. So you know, that guy, you know, when I learned this, I learned something else that was profound a couple of years later, and that is that of the habits of wealthy people in the world, one of the biggest habits that they did more than people that weren't wealthy, okay? There's this guy, I'll show you a book just now that did incredible research on this. One of the biggest habits in terms of differentiating between what wealthy people did versus not wealthy people was that wealthy people were committed to lifelong educational self-improvement. 86% of the wealthiest people in the world are committed to lifelong educational self as one of their primary strategies for becoming wealthy and staying wealthy. And when I met this billionaire, and you know, he didn't actually say, can I ask you a question? He said, can I have 20 minutes of your time to ask you a whole lot of questions? That's how he started the conversation. I said hi to him, and he said, Brian, before we talk about what we're supposed to talk about, can I have 20 minutes of your time to ask you a whole lot of questions? And I thought, like, you know, like, what does that say for a guy that's worth $3.2 billion, but he still wants to learn because he was also in his late 70s. And it was the whole point. I started to look at people who were wealthy, and I noticed that they were like sponges, that they would open themselves up to new stuff all the time.
In fact, that same guy took me for a drive in Cape Town, and he wanted to, all he did, I mean, he was the billionaire, and he asked me a whole heap of questions. I asked him too. But I mean, I was like, why does this guy want to know from me? He's worth so much money.
It's the commitment. And, you know, John DeMartini, who's a very wealthy guy, like I mentioned earlier, he said, you know, Brian, the people that need it the least do it the most. The people that need it the most do it the least. So how committed are you to learning? And if it's about money, and this can be related to learning anything, it's like, understand, if you've got to hear it a million times, you've got to hear it a million times, but you don't stop until your life illustrates. Of course, when it starts to illustrate, you don't stop anyway, because it was this incredible technique, hence the fact that people commit to it for a lifetime. Very, very important. So the first thing I want to share is, I'm going to show you some books. You want to write these down quickly or take screenshots of the screen or whatever, because I'm not going to repeat them, right? These are some, because people always say to me, like, what do you recommend around money? You know, what should I read? And these are the ones that I feel, sorry, there's just all the kind of stuff you can do. These are the ones that are very impactful. So John DeMartini's written a couple of books on money. The one that I absolutely love, was one of the first ones I read, was How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven. And John is not religious, and in the first chapter he says, what the hell is heaven anyway? In fact, it's right the first line. It's the first chapter in the book is what the hell is heaven anyway, just in case you think it's a religious book. And it's brilliant. It's very practical. Tony Robbins has literally become the modern day guru on personal financial success. And he's written Money, which was it's the biggest selling book of the last sort of 20 years on financial success after Robert Kiyosaki's. And he's written another book called Unshakable, and he's got another one coming out, I think, early next year. Brilliant stuff, okay? He's like the guy to go to at the moment. So get your hands on any of those because it's really, really incredible advice. And Secrets to Millionaire Mind, Tio Becker, who's like one of the founders in our industry of really teaching people psychology around wealth. Brilliant, brilliant book. Anything from Susie Orman, you heard Robin talk about her now. Susie is just like, she's the wealth expert, you know, globally recognized in that space. Anything from her. The book I spoke about where we got that stat around the 86% of wealthy people is How Rich People Think by Steve Seelgold. And very worthwhile getting hold of it. It's a hard book. You might need to buy some of these online. And the one that probably
audio book, Brian.
They're audio, they're online, they're all over the place. And one of the ones that everyone has to read, and it's a book that was written, 100 years ago or close to it, is The Richest Man in Babylon. Okay. And, this is a book that all of these people swear by in terms of the advice that it gives in that book. It's a story, but it's, filled with this continuous advice as to how you should behave around money. And it's the cornerstone of anything around money as well. So guys, hopefully those will help you, those 6 books. But I mean, there's many you can look for. Just what you want to avoid is get rich quick. Because unfortunately in this industry of wealth creation, there's a lot of get rich quick because people are suckers. They want anything where they can become billionaires overnight. So, guys,
can I just iterate that? Unfortunately, in our industry, a lot of what people sell is, will you be a millionaire in the next 6 months? I'll be honest with you. It took me, Brian, I did Mind Power in May 1999. And I think it was in 2004 or 5. No, it was later, maybe 2006. That I actually discovered I was a millionaire. The first million for me took a long time. And I didn't even realize I had it. It was when I added up all my property. I was like, I remember going, oh my God, I'm a millionaire. After that, they seem to make brothers and sisters. But I actually think it's better because do you know that 60% of people who win the lottery, 60% of them lose it in the first 2 years because they don't have the right consciousness. So actually, I think what Brian
you don't want to jump from 0 to billionaire or something. It's crazy.
We want to.
We do, but it's a process. And you actually, everything we started with is you've got to condition yourself to really understand the relationship with money that you have. Otherwise, you will. The reason those lottery winners lose that money is because they're so badly conditioned. I mean, these are people that win $20 million and $50 million sometimes. But it's amazing how the universe will conspire against you to give you a million reasons how to spend that money. You might think, geez, if I had $10 million, I would never have to worry about money. Take it from me, because I grew my business over 20 times in 18 months. So my personal income and my business income went, from barely $1 million a year to a few $1 million a year in the space of 18 months. Wow. And I promise you, it's unbelievable how many opportunities there are to spend money. I was amazed at how you would think before. If you tenfolded your income, in a very short period of time, you'd have plenty of money. It's unbelievable. So there's this law called Parkinson's second law that actually says your expenses are always rise to meet your income. And when I'm in a seminar and I say to people, what do you do when you make more money? What do you think they say? Literally, the whole room will echo this instantly because it comes from the subconscious mind. What happens when you got more money? I spend it. It comes from the subconscious mind, Robin, because when a whole room of people, and it's obviously a generalization, but it's 80% of the room, they literally are conditioned to know how to spend money, not how to keep it. And that's really the key that we need to understand. Listen, a couple of my wealthiest friends have all said to me in different times that until you measure your net worth, you'll never be wealthy. And a lot of you have no idea what your net worth is. You have no idea what you're actually worth. And if you don't know, nothing's going to change. You're going to think you got a lot of money. Maybe you'll earn a lot more money, but you'll have nothing left. And you won't be worth anything. And that's the real crux to being financially independent is your net worth. Not how much you earn, but how much you keep. So until you measure your net worth, you will never be wealthy. And by the way, just for those that don't fully understand, net worth is your assets less your liabilities, okay? And that equals your net worth. And, some of you, if you had to do this equation now, might even have a negative net worth. In fact, a lot of you probably do, because a lot of people, because of the way our financial world works at the moment, credit is an easy thing. The funny thing is the more money you earn, the more credit they offer you, if you notice.
Actually, no, it was amazing how many credit cards I started being offered. I've been offered so many credit cards.
I
must be bad because I've actually literally only got one credit card.
Yeah.
I've only got one credit card.
No, I've also only got one.
Because I'm like, I don't want to have all these cards.
No, I just turned them down. One of the credit card phoned me the other day and said, "You've been so good on your account, please can we up your credit limit?" I said, "No, thank you." Because it's a sucker. And I've fallen into that trap before. So you make more money and suddenly they offer you the world. It's crazy. But anyway, owing money is a liability. So of course you've got to get that balance right. So what is your net worth? And if it's minus 100,000 today, then you need to measure that and say, what's it going to be in a year's time? And that's very important. If you only focus on what you earn, your net worth is not going to change. Your lifestyle might, but your net worth won't. So you need to understand that it's a different equation. Not about what you earn, it's about what you keep. And so the only guaranteed way, and this is not from me, because I don't consider myself wealthy to the degree of my wealthy friends, who are all $10 million up to $100 million, up to even billionaire, is they all say it without any shadow of a doubt, that the only true wealth is the money that you've accumulated over time. And so, yes, you can have businesses. Yes, you can even have properties. And I don't want to get into a whole discussion about this, but those are all what we call speculative investment. Business is a very speculative investment. So it might be worth something at a time, but it's not going to maintain its worth. But liquid money actually maintains its worth. And most people do not save. Now, I'm going to share a couple of things with you that are going to freak you out a little bit. So firstly, the myth of saving won't make you wealthy is bullshit. Yes, you might want to accelerate it with a successful business, but so many people say, "Brian, because I work with entrepreneurs, but I'm going to be wealthy. My business is going to make me wealthy." I said, "So you're going to sell your business for, let's say, 100 million, whenever, 20 years time or whatever." Yeah, that's my plan. So how many people do you know that have sold their business for 100 million or more? And they just sit there like blank. And I promise you, I've done this in rooms. And the same people, they don't know them. They know of people. So they talk, and it's really like somebody will say, "I know this person." And then say, "Oh, I know him as well. I know him as well." But they don't actually know him. They just know of him because they read about him. People, you've got to understand the strategy that your business will make you, financially independent. Business is crazy. 97% of small businesses are technically insolvent in the world. Your odds of actually succeeding financially in a business is like 1 in 1,000. You could actually go to the casino and you'll probably have more chance of winning a whole lot of money than you will of getting your business to make you wealthy one day. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's a tool, but you've got to understand. It doesn't actually matter how much you earn. What matters is what you do with what you earn. So the only guaranteed way. Now, yes, there are people that have become, millionaires and even billionaires, in our generations, through their businesses. But that's not a guaranteed way. That's a highly unlikely way. The only guaranteed way of becoming wealthy over time is if you save money. Okay. And I said, notice I'm saying saving, not investing. I want to be clear about that. Okay. And again, you can argue with me about it till you're blue in the face. I believe it 100%. But my wealthiest friends, who are all completely financially independent in big ways, all echo this without a doubt. There's no question.
Well, actually, I think it's what's John DeMartini's product called? Is that 7 Secrets to
Financial Success or Financial?
Because when I listened to that, he said the first thing he recommends, and I actually want to recommend it to people because I want to give you guys some practical stuff, is he says that in South Africa, because our interest rates are so high, it's actually a benefit. He says, so take some of what you earn and open a fixed deposit. And he says, just put it in there every month and just forget about it. Yeah. So I did that. And to be honest with you, it was such a small amount. I was thinking, really, is it going to make that much difference? But I've been doing it ever since I listened to that 3 years ago. And the other day I checked out what it's grown to. I was like, oh, that's nice. And that's exactly related to what Brian is just saying right now, is that his whole concept is that you have to save, because most people stop saving because they're trying to invest and stuff, but the saving is always there. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. And I'm actually going to share John, because John's my primary mentor in wealth creation, because in our industry, and as a guy that came from nothing himself, to amass the kind of wealth that he has, you definitely want to listen to people that have amassed wealth about how to become wealthy, right? And, there's a lot of people telling you how to become wealthy. You want to do a bit of research and say, even Robin and I myself, we don't run out there and do, and all we do is teach people how to be wealthy, because we don't consider ourselves gurus in that space, even though, from a standpoint, we might be a lot more successful than the average person we talk to. But the point is, I'm going to share John's actual technique with you very quickly. So let me get into that now. This is what John actually teaches. And I've done this in a number of different savings accounts. And the other day I looked at my daughter's my ex-wife, because my daughter lives in America, she's 13, my ex-wife phoned and she said, it looks like she's actually going to get education sponsored and everything. And I said, that's interesting. I said, look, because it's expensive, education in America, especially tertiary and what have you. And I was like, but have you checked the account? Because we haven't checked it. Like I've just been putting money in and expanding it forever. And we checked the account. We actually said, oh my God, there's like enough money in there to pay for her education and for my stepson's education in America. And we were like, and it looks like they're going to get bursaries and get the education paid for, And I'm like, well, we'll think about it. And I just reminded my wife, it's not your money, it's her money. But it's like, it's just by following these things. So we want to set up savings accounts. You literally want to end this webinar, go into your bank and say, give me a savings account. Get a money market one if you can, because you get a little bit more interest. Forget about interest until you've saved a certain amount of money, guys. It's a whole habitual thing, and it's a whole mindset thing. Everyone goes, oh, but Brian, I'm only going to earn 4% on a savings account. And say, you're not going to earn squat. Forget about what you're earning in interest and get into the habit of doing it. When you've amassed enough money to prove that you're serious about this, we'll start worrying about what return you're getting on. And by the way, that math, as I'll show you now, is like $500,000 minimum. So when you've amassed a savings of $500,000 rand or R1 million is normally what I say, then we can start worrying about how much you're getting on return on it. But don't come and tell me that you're not doing this because the interest rate is so low. Because it's not about the interest, it's about your flippin' habit. And that's going to require a massive shift. And, I always say with Robin, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, behavior also helps to change the mind. So when I used to just want to change the mind and expect everything to change, not much happened. When I started to adopt behavior with the mindset change, I found that consistently doing behavior helped shift the mindset as well. Yeah. So, it's about that practical element, not just, sitting back and expecting something to change because you said something every day. And that was critical for me as well. So here's the technique that John teaches that's profoundly powerful. I've literally seen people go from multiple hundred thousands in debt to millionaires using this technique exclusively. And these are working people, not even people that have businesses and massive opportunities for income. You pay amount. You agree. The ideal is you want to pay at least 10% of your salary into a savings account. The 10% is the starting point of wealth creation. Every one of you should take 10% of what you earn and put it away as a minimum. Okay. Now, some of you are going to go, Brian, I can't. Start with whatever you can. Okay. Make sure it's a little bit hard, but it mustn't be too hard. Otherwise, you'll just fall away from it. But then move up as fast as you can to the minimum 10%. Once you've got 10% of your income coming in, I want you then every 3 months to increase the amount by just 10%. Now, there's a whole psychology around 10% where people don't feel threatened by 10%. They start feeling threatened when it goes to 11, 12, 15 and what have you. And so from a psychological perspective, listen to this. Let's say
I like that
you put in $3,000 away each month. Okay, and you're just going to do it for 3 months. So you commit to that amount, and every month you debit it out of your account, $3,000, $3,000, $3,000. On the 4th month, you increase it by 10%, which is just $300. So it doesn't feel like this massive, oh, how am I going to earn that amount of money? You go like, okay, I'm just going to, add 3,300. And you do that for 3 months. This will actually lead to you doubling what you invest every 2 years, approximately, okay? But it comes in these small little chunks. And it's profound. I promise you, it's a silly little thing, even if you start small. I remember John saying he started with $50 a month. And, today he's worth silly numbers. Okay, I mean, silly money. So, and he did it for 28 years consistently. But you know that John today, half of his earning in his company goes into his savings. He's so addicted to the methodology of saving that half of his total turnover inside his companies goes straight into savings. His business is structured in such a way that there's more than a 50% gross profit. I know how he structures business, a complicated conversation. But, he gets a massive amount of money. And 50% of everything that earns minimum turnover in business, not personal income, goes into his savings. And he has savings every single day of the month. He has different things going off his account. He says he loses track completely because he became obsessed with it. An obsession with money is not a bad thing.
I'm okay with it.
Exactly. In terms of behavior, right? Obviously, if you start hurting people because of obsession, it's a different conversation. This little technique is actually profound, and it's so simple. I want to just quickly, just a couple more points in that. Do not worry about interest until you've amassed at least 500,000. So I already mentioned that. Once you've amassed 500,000, you can diversify your investments, but don't risk more than 10%. Now, the standard is 10%. Tony taught this to me years ago as well. You call it your risk bucket. So most of your money is in your safe bucket, and you play with a certain amount of money. And that's where you can take speculative investment and test things and, take a chance. But it must be the amount that you are prepared emotionally to lose. So if you've got R1 million and you're going like, are you prepared to lose $1 million? Because you've got this investment, you're going to get a 26% return, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, no, I'm not prepared to lose $1 million. So how much are you prepared? Tell me, of the million, how much are you prepared to lose? And you'll see most people are going to go around somewhere around the 10% or even less. You know, so you say, okay.
I thought 50 to 100. That's what I thought.
Yeah, exactly. And so you go, okay, then that's what you play with. You don't mess with it. Here's the thing. You can spend 7 years amassing like 2 million rand, and you can spend it in a day and go to zero. And if you're like me at 47, and Rob, we're similar age, aren't we?
I'm 48 on Friday.
Yeah, you're a little bit older than me. You know, as you get older, you realize that, you know, if you mess it up and have to start again, how hard it is. You know, if you're young, if you're in your 20s listening to this, let me tell you, you can always guarantee that you'll be wealthy one day by just doing that.
Yeah.
You know, very, very important. Anyway, couple of the other points: live below your means, all right? And you know, the T.R. Becker, who the Millionaire Mind Intensive is one of the best events if you can ever get to one. It doesn't come to South Africa anymore, but if you can, it's mind blowing, right? And he teaches a thing called the JAR system, and the Susie's big on this as well. Live way below your means, way below. And I know you can't start like that, but like with T.R., he'll say, try and get to live off 50 to 60% of what you earn.
Sorry,
let's take
Brian, I'm going to just jump in here.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you guys how important this is. For me, I've never ever understood how people can spend money they don't have. I just see somebody's asked, but I mean, what if I don't have 10% to save? I'm telling you, for me, that you find it. You are, you know, for me, I remember after I went to Susie Woman, I cut up my Edgar's cards. I cut up every card because I just thought, what the freaking hell am I doing spending money that I can't afford to spend? And I mean, I could buy a Porsche. Right now, I could buy a Porsche. I could buy a Ferrari. But I'm like, why? I drive a car that's nice enough. So I think it's because of that exact theory. I learned at the age of 25 to live below my means and actually always make sure that I've got surplus. Yeah. And so I just want to say, for those of you like for me to, you know, I heard you saying that, you know, what if you don't have it?
And if you don't you don't have 10, like I said, you start with what you can. But, you know, if you start to become wealth-centric in terms of saving, like a classic thing, you go to dinner with your friends, you were going to pay. One of your friends says, no, he's going to pay. You go, well, how much was the bill? $440. Take that $440, go and put it in your savings. Because you were going to spend it, right? And one of the things I did is I took my debt and I said, every 10 rand of my debt that I can reduce in terms of the payments I have to make each month towards my debt, that goes straight into my savings. So I literally brought the debt down and simultaneously put it into the savings. You know, and that's because you've got to maintain your lifestyle and not expand it unnecessarily. But, you know, TR actually teaches this thing called the JAR system. And it's profoundly powerful. If you Google it, you'll find it all over the place. And he has these 6 different jars. The first one is what he calls the financial freedom account, the most important one. That's the money you're saving for financial freedom one day. Minimum 10%. Okay. Then he has an LTSS jar. And this is the long-term savings for spending account. So if your objective is to buy a house or to put down R1 million or to do a renovation or to buy a new car cash or something, we call that the long-term savings for spending account. And he says you should have at least 10% in there as well. Your education, very critical. Okay, you should be investing money. You heard Robin say how much he spent on Tony Robbins. I'm taking my whole team to Tony Robbins in Singapore in February. You don't want to know how much we spend on education through our business, right? But 10% education account. Your necessity account. Now that's what you actually live off, 55%. Okay, so, you know, you can see between the 50 and the 65 and the 60%. Your play, he says it's very important. This is actually very true. Whatever you're saving, ideally, have a play account that's the same amount. So if you're saving 10%, have a 10% play account. Your objective is every month to spend the 10% play account. Or you can save it for 3 months, but that starts going to long-term saving for spending. So at the end of the day, like, you have to treat yourself. You spoke about having to feel it, and it's very, very important. So use that play account for nothing else but to do things that make you feel wealthy, successful, happy, fulfilled. You know, so it's like you sit with your wife every month and you go, what are we going to spend our $2,000 from the play account on? Every single month. And it's the same amount that you're saving. So if you're saving 2,000, you spend 2,000. Play, not anything else, but things that you purely want to do for yourself. You know, as a context. And then you have your give account. Okay, so most people believe what we give, we get back. And if you're in a religion that talks about the 10% tithe, and maybe you want your give account to be 10%, guess where you take the extra 5% from? Your necessity account. Don't break this. This is such a simple methodology. I know people that have transformed their lives using this methodology. So I've given you one from John DeMartini that's been profound in my life and many other people's lives. And this is normally explained to you in about 2 hours of the seminar, so I'm giving you a very short version of it. But it's very, very powerful. So please, guys, We have to live beyond our means. We have to save. We have to get into this habit of creating wealth. Wealth is not what you earn. Wealth is what you do with what you earn. As simple as that. Lastly, and this is from John as well, I think it's actually in the How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven. See debt as a blessing. So debt becomes this incredible negative stimulant in our lives. Now, a lot of you are going to have a whole lot of debt. Instead of seeing debt as this burden that's killing you financially, change it. And this is now pure mindset, right? Turn around and say, you know what? I'm so grateful that somebody saw enough value in me to lend me that money. Okay, because we create this negative thing. We blame the banks, we blame the system. Some people even create these organizations where they tell you to go against the system and don't pay your debt back and refuse this and screw the banks and all that kind of stuff. Guys, in our country at the moment in South Africa, you absolutely have to know. Like when you go and get a loan, they tell you exactly how much interest you're going to pay, exactly how much the whole thing's broken down. Because by law, we actually have go to America, they don't tell you nothing. They just say, yeah, here's another credit card. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you actually realize that debt is a blessing. And you just turn around. And if you want to get rid of it, never, ever, ever pay your debt off before you put saving into effect, right? This is something that actually John said to me that was so profound. He said, like, think about this. Let's say you spend the next 3 years paying off your debt. So you get to the end of this 3-year thing, you turn around and say, I'm debt free. How much are you worth? 0. It just doesn't feel so good, you know? So balance it out. If you want to pay off debt simultaneously, take what you're going to save, put some into debt, some into, you know, and never more than 50-50. So at least 50% must go into savings. Might take you a bit longer to get out of the debt, but the habit will build you up. One day you'll say, I'm debt free and I've got R1 million in the bank. You know, that's where you want to be at the same time. So you can also use that 10% increase in payments every 3 months that you use for saving. You can actually use that to accelerate your debt payment as well. And it works well. You know, obvious thing is, cut up the credit cards, stop spending the debt, and start figuring out how we can lessen it. When I was doing that exercise to every piece of debt I reduced in payment, I added to savings. I, for instance, found out I was paying insurance on a number of my debts when I actually had insurance. I was just too lazy because I didn't, you know, when they gave me the account, the debt, they said, no, do you want to include, you have to have insurance, so do you want to include it, and we can give it to you straight away. Otherwise, you've got to send us documents, and I'm a lazy oak, so I'm like, yo, whatever, you know. I remember on 2 of them, there were 2 like fairly sizable debts. I was paying $600 a month on each. Wow. So I turned around, I got like millions in insurance, you know. So I was like, I don't think I need that. You know, went then, got, you know, showed them the insurance, got my insurance guys to give them everything, and it was $1,200. And I was like, straight into the savings, you know. And that's what Rob was saying as well to whoever it was that said 10% is struggled to get to. Find it. You've got to make a commitment. Now, all of this is pointless unless you can do what Robin's talking about, which is change your mind about wealth creation. Okay, it's critically important. Now, Rob, I know we've taken a little bit longer than we planned. There's the summary, by the way. Very simple keys, but if you want to take a screenshot or something, quickly do that. Or use your phone and take a picture, because I know you're all going to ask Yvette, can I have the slides afterwards? And you can, but it's $1,000 per set of slides we send. Just remember that. Okay, then pay up front, go straight into my savings just for clarity, or into Rob's. I suppose I have to give him some. But listen, Rob, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to go with this?
Well, what I actually want to just do is I want to address something, because I saw some useful conversation going on in the back there. And I wanted to touch on something, and at one level it saddens me. I saw someone saying there, oh, this is for the big boys, I need to check out. And Fran, I hope you still are there. That's exactly what I'm talking about, the mindset. You need to expand your mindset. Now, I did say to you at the very beginning that these numbers, when Brian was telling me 100 million, I was like, what? 100 million? I'm thinking, what? 100 million? That's a lot of money. But then I suddenly remembered that you have to be willing to expand your consciousness before you can change your reality. Listen to me now and hear me later. First, you expand your consciousness, then you change your reality. So my invitation to you is to think differently. Now, I see some very good questions going on there. Bridget, slow down. Let me share with you what's happening right now. You're coming from a place of fear. It is impossible to solve your situation with the mindset you currently have. You have to shift your mindset before you can change the problem. What's that statement? I think it's Albert Einstein. You can't solve a problem with the mindset that's created it.
You're talking about if you keep doing the same stuff, like insanity.
Yeah, well, that's a definition of insanity. That's a different thing. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So what I'm saying to you is your current mindset cannot change your current reality, because your current mindset is what has created your current reality.
I heard a wonderful saying where he said, what got you here won't get you there.
I love that. What got you here won't get you there. So what I'm going to invite you guys to do, no matter what your situation is, when I say that I believe wealth creation is 80% psychology, 20% mechanics, I mean it. You have to change the way you're thinking, or you'll never change your reality. So I'm going to ask you to immerse yourself in a different way of being. So for those of you who are battling financially right now, and I know many of you are, if all you take from me and Brian tonight is to start applying the affirmations and do it every single day, whether it's producing results or not, that's free. All that takes is time. It takes 5 minutes in the shower for you to say an affirmation and create the feeling and make it real now. That's the first thing. What Brian has given you is a practical example that if you just do it, for those of you who can, what if you could just take a percentage of whatever you're doing right now and start saving now, not next week, not next month, not next year, now. If all you can save is 100 Rand a month, save 100 Rand a month. Because if you increase it by 10%, it'll grow. I promise you. Don't just talk about this, take action. So that was just a couple of things I wanted to share with you guys, is you have to change your mindset. You have to think differently. And for those of you who've been to Mind Power, here's something I always ask people. Any question you ask your mind must look for answers. It's designed to work that way. If you keep focusing on the fact that there isn't a solution, you're already talking yourself out of the solution. There is a way. And I love what Tony says. There's always a way when you're committed. So here's my invitation to you. Commit. You need to make the commitment to creating your financial success and creating your abundance. So when Brian and I were chatting for an hour before this event, when you said the figure, I was intimidated. I was like, wow, okay, geez, I've got a ways to go. And then I had to remind myself of exactly what I teach. Change your mindset, Robin. Okay, if I'm going to get there, how am I going to get there? So I now start asking myself the question. So when you were speaking right now, I was listening deeply. And I'm taking notes and going, am I doing this? Okay, I'm doing that. I'm doing the same. Am I doing this? Geez, I need to start doing that. So put yourself in the environment, because most people take financial advice from people who are broke. So you actually want to put yourself in a situation where you are with the big boys. Listen to the people who have been there. My first guru was a guy by the name of Christo Troutman, and he was worth a hell of a lot of money. And so I said, teach me. And he said, do you really want to know? I said, teach me. And he said, you need to buy property and stop buying BMWs. And I went, okay. I bought my first property for 455,000 Rand. And I was very upset that I had to pay 455,000 Rand for a 2-bedroom flat in Sea Point. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So much money for a 2-bedroom flat. The 250,000 I paid on my BMW made perfect sense to me. Until 3 years later, when I sold that same BMW for 150,000 Rand, and that property was valued at 900,000 Rand. Today, that same property is 4 million Rand. Now, I bought it 18 years ago, but I learned a major lesson. You want to hang out with the big boys. You want to spend time with people who have walked the road so you can learn from them. So I just wanted to share that, because I do know it can be a bit intimidating and overwhelming, but that's exactly what I want to do. Put yourself in a situation where you want to grow.
Yeah. I think, and by the way, guys, we're still going to address, and we are going a little bit over time, so just bear with us, but we're going to address the whole, how do we protect ourselves in political and economic turmoil. So we're going to do that after. I want to talk to Rob about this, because Rob, you know, when we were actually party to trying to bring TL's program here again this year, and then Success Resources canceled it. And I remember, and I said, you know, I think we need to do something, even though it's not our core stuff. It's like we need to do something. And I know you and I tried to put something together, and it was impossible to get the diaries to match. And then you did, and I'm so chuffed you did this, because you put this thing together, which is you know, Robin Banks Wealth Mastery Weekend. And you decided to make this commitment to actually give South Africans a weekend where we can talk about wealth creation and the challenges around money. And you know, give us a little bit of insight. Like, what are you hoping to achieve with doing this? And what's your objective? By the way, these are the dates.
So the main focus of the weekend is we're going to be doing an entire weekend, which is next week, Saturday and Sunday. It's the 25th and 26th of November at Vodacom World in Midrand. And it's 2 days, which is dedicated primarily to the power of wealth creation. Now, I am not the only speaker at the event. As I said to you guys, my focus is on the psychology of wealth creation. But as Brian was speaking, I'm listening to what you're saying because I know I need to improve my mechanics. I'm a master at doing wealth creation. So the weekend is the 25th and 26th of November. It's next weekend, and I'm not the only speaker. The speakers at the event there are going to be 5 of us speaking. Because it's my event, I get to do 2 sessions. But I've invited people who I believe are masters in the area of what they speak about. So Brian, as you know, his focus is on business, and as you can hear, he's got a wealth of information around wealth creation. But the other 3 speakers at the event, besides Brian and I'm very delighted to see that we have 2 female speakers. It's unusual to have female speakers. But Ann Wilson is an author of the best-selling book, The Wealth Chef, and her focus is on wealth creation through trading and investing. So she teaches people how to invest online and how you can make money through investments online by trading and doing that. And she's a master at doing that. Donna McCullum is also known as the fairy godmother. I like what she teaches because she's practically going to help people deal with their psychology around wealth creation. She's going to get you to do exercises to determine your net worth, exactly what Brian was talking about, and be able to figure out where you are and where you want to go, and then look at how you can turn your anxiety into confidence. And I love that, turning anxiety into confidence. So her focus is also on wealth creation through changing your psychology. And then the final speaker is my good friend Scott Pick. And in fact, I saw that his partner was interviewed on ENCA last night. I was quite honored. I was quite excited to see that because he's the co-founder along with his partner. I can't remember his name, but he was on ENCA last night. And the company that he has created is called Wealth Migrate. And what Scott is going to be teaching you is how you can invest in property for as little as $100 US. So, and he teaches you how you can actually go online and invest in hospitals because of the return you get on hospitals. So he teaches a system in that way. So why I invited the other speakers is that I do still know that it's 80% psychology, but you have to have the mechanics. It doesn't help having the right mindset. So that's the weekend. As you can see, the weekend has been going for $14,950.
I want to, I still freaked when you guys told me this earlier. I was like, what are you guys talking about? Because, we know it's $14,950 tennis, and Yvette came up with this idea, Rob, that I think she must have given you some alcohol or something to make you sort of do this. But she came up with this idea that is this whole thing about Black Friday, right? So we're going to give this ridiculous offer. Ridiculous. It is ridiculous on Friday, because if you don't know what Black Friday is, Google it. But it's a thing that's becoming prevalent in South Africa. But this Friday is Black Friday globally, and Yvette came up with this idea of doing this ridiculous offer, and you said, well, why don't we actually give this to the guys tonight? They don't have to wait till Friday. And this is insane because I know how much it costs to put in this event. It's 200-300 people in Johannesburg, and I don't know why you're doing this. But I do know why you're doing it. But, this is a crazy, crazy opportunity.
Well, my whole focus is to get as many people as I possibly can there. We've got about 200 people in the room already. The venue seats about 250 to, I think, at a push 300. It's the big venue at Vodacom. So my goal is I'm already doing it. It's happening. We've got 200 people on the event. In fact, you can see Progenda's already said that he'll be there. There's many of you on the webinar who are already going to be at that event. So I wanted to make it available to as many people as possible who want to be there and want to take charge of their financial destiny. So we are giving it away at a ridiculous price. So for those of you who'd like to be there,
so it's not going to be $14,900. I still think this is insane. In fact, we need to talk. Black Friday special, which is now going to be available for you, $1,950 for 2 solid days with Robin and some of his friends who are incredible. I know Scott, I know Donna. Anne's new to me, but I've watched the video. She's brilliant.
No, she's brilliant.
Scott and Donna are just brilliant in their own nature. Anyway, I've known Scott for years. So, it's just amazing the kind of input you're going to get for 2 days for this. This doesn't even cover the cost. That's why I think it's insane. Robin's pretty much putting money into this himself, which is true, right? And I know the other students have paid a lot more. So here's the thing, guys. If you want to take this offer up, because I know it's going to be limited, I'm going to give you an opportunity. we're going to give you an opportunity. You wondered who's running this webinar, Brian or Robert? Is you're going to see a little thing pop up now, which you can simply link on, and you can go, if you want to be at this event, just click on that little thing. It says click to buy now and go and pay $1,950 for 2 days with some of the best minds around wealth creation in South Africa today. And it's going to be an exceptional event. Now, Rob, people are tired at the end of the year. I know, like this is an issue we always see from a lot of stuff we do. And I even brought this up to you when you asked me originally about doing these dates because of your hectic calendar. But let's just talk about why, regardless of how tired you are, you should really be at this event.
I couldn't think of a more important thing to do. If you want to have financial sex, if you want to have financial sex, if you want to have financial sex, if you want to have, if you want to have financial success for 2018 and beyond, the time to look at it is now. You actually want to set yourself up to win. I want you to go into the new year with a strategy and a plan about how you're going to achieve that. So the goal and the reason why we are giving it away at what I think is an amazing, amazing offer is I'd like, and I know for some of you are suffering, and for those of you who are suffering, take whatever you can from this webinar. If you feel you've gained incredible value from this webinar, imagine spending 2 days with myself, Brian, and 3 other speakers who are masters in their field. And yeah, you might call it the big boys, but that is who you want to be with. You want to speak to people who've walked the road. So it's going to be $1,950 for the entire weekend. And the reason why I think that the time to do it is now is you actually don't want to be focusing on your fatigue. To be completely authentic with you, we've had a tough year. Well, tough in the sense that it's been busy. But I mean, and I keep saying to Yvette, who created the schedule? And Yvette goes, you did, Rob. And it's just been absolutely absurd. But I've actually been so focused. In fact, my thought this morning was like, I'm going to finish this year so strong. And so my focus is to make sure that when I go into 2018, I've got a very clear plan. So for me, the best time to do it is now so that you can actually start planning for 2018 because January is too late. Yeah. By the time you get to January, it's like you're already on the back foot. So for those of you who'd like to join us, it's 1,950 Rand for the weekend. And if you've enjoyed this webinar, we're going to go into so much more depth. For those of you who can't be there, that's fine. Take what you can out of this webinar. But for those of you who can be there, if you've gained this much from the webinar, I promise you're going to gain an incredible amount from the weekend.
And I know people that are traveling from other countries around, like Southern African countries. I know people traveling from all over South Africa. It's such a low fee that actually to add on the cost of having to come to Johannesburg, whatever.
Well, that's also partly why we did that.
Like, have you ever done an event for 1,000?
I've never ever done an event for 1,950. This is the very first time I've ever done an event for 1,950. But we want numbers because the more people in the room, because also one of my favorite things that John and I were speaking about is your success helps lots of people. Your failure helps no one. It is your duty to succeed. And right now, I cannot think of a more important time in our country for us to manifest and create success. We need successful individuals and we need people who are financially successful.
Yeah. So guys, we're going to leave it up there. Take this offer. And it is the best time. Honestly, it is. It doesn't matter if you're tired, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. You're going to learn very particular, simple strategies that you can implement. And you want to actually implement them now so that they run in January. You don't want to try and do it in January when all the chaos comes out as well. So, come and spend these 2 days. I promise you, you'll come and shake Robin's hand for actually making it. I'm so chuffed that it's happening. I know a lot of my students are coming to you and I'm just so chuffed that you actually pulled it off because,
Listen, I actually want to end the year on a bang for people. I mean, by the way, we do events. We do the Shaping Your Destiny. It's a 20,000 Rand weekend. So 2,000 Rand is 10% of the price. But the more people we have there, the merrier. So guys, if you want to join me, it'll be the best weekend you spend, best way to end the year. But there's something else we wanted to share.
Yeah, so let's just share something. If there's any questions about this, we'll answer them once we finish sharing this. But let's just talk about, which we get to the right screen. There's too many screens going on here, right? Okay, which is how do we protect ourselves? And I mean, this is something that, I'd love to say that we're going to spend an hour telling you this, but it's actually, there's only one effective way to protect yourself from political and economic turmoil. Now, the interesting thing is, we talk about South Africa. I don't know if you know what's going on in Zimbabwe, where some of my students are from, but that's crazy. But it's like the world is in turmoil. This is
the whole world
African issue. I know we got Jacob and we got our issues.
But Americans have got Donald Trump, and then there's Brexit.
And there's tons. I mean, there's incredible turmoil all over the place. And that actually lends ourselves to this point that if your strategy to protect yourself financially is to immigrate, where? You know, I got family in the US and I got businesses set up in the US, and I don't want to just have a US citizenship. And my sister's going through getting a British citizenship, and I want to do the same. And it's like, I don't know that these countries in my lifetime are going to remain safe havens to go to. Right? That's really a practical, realistic thought. So there's only one way to protect yourself. You don't want to be, I'm going to go to Australia. I'm going to go to America. I'm going to go to the UK. No, you want to be an international citizen. Absolutely. And you want to earn money in more than one country. You know, Rob and I both earn money in multiple countries. We've got accounts in other parts of the world. We've got people paying us from 10, 15, 20 different countries. And at the end of the day, the greatest security you can give yourself is to earn money in other countries, because here's the weirdest thing. You might be going, I'd love to go to America, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. Simple. Make money in America. America, and especially with Donald Trump in charge, but because he'll give you all the, if you are making money and paying taxes in a country, they will open their doors. Changes completely. If you simply come in to take a job and be another consumer inside their community, then they've got all that resistance in terms of immigration. But if you've got a business and if you're making money in that country and you want to pay taxes in that country, or preferably already are, they will open their doors like you won't believe. And you can do that. That's true for almost all countries in the world, regardless of how restricted you might think they are. So there's only effectively one strategy. Start or evolve your business where it starts earning money from people in multiple countries. Now, I know some of you guys are going, but I work for somebody else. And for some of you, you've got a business, but I only sell to people in Johannesburg. You know, I'm really restricted. I'm asking you to think out of the box here, okay? Because there is no other strategy. You can't say, well, I'm earning, you know, hopefully I'll make millions of my business in Johannesburg and the whole country falls apart. Now, I also want to make it clear, both Rob and myself are eternal optimists. We don't believe South Africa in any way is going to fall apart. And we call this our home, despite having, you know, places and traveling the world and what have you. But there's just nothing guaranteed. It's like, this is the first year where I've actually said to myself, you know what, Brian, I'm not going to be naive and just assume everything's going to be fine, because nothing's guaranteed. So at the end of the day, you know, my strategy, global citizen, you know, literally money in different countries, which I already have. You know, I'm working extensively on growing our business globally to have clients all over the world. And that's it, because then I have choice and I have freedom. And that's the only way I can protect myself effectively. So even if you've never even thought of this, or you have a business, or you work for somebody and you think, just open your mind up to this. This is just, you know, you bite, everything's with one bite. What can we do? Go and learn. How can I get business? How can I start to earn money in different parts of the world? I promise you, guys, it's Rob, I mean, what other strategy could you have?
So, guys, I see that we are on 90 minutes. Give us another 5 minutes, because I just want to say that I cannot, all I can say is, look, South Africa's in a lot of, we're facing many challenges at the moment. It's a fact. I mean, you know, we are eternal optimists. We have mind power. But honestly, America's facing challenges. Brexit is facing challenges. I just spoke to a friend in New Zealand, and my business, my real estate guys in New Zealand who have been printing money. Literally, the real estate agents have been printing money. The new government, which is now a Labour government, is now wanting to stop international people from buying, which is where they've been getting their money. And so the guys in the real estate industry are actually shaking, you know, they're a bit nervous about what the future brings. So remember what I said to you earlier when Fran said, I need to check out, this is for the big boys. It's not. Remember this. Any question you ask your mind will look for answers. And I couldn't agree with Brian more. The world is changing. We are evolving. And the best way for you to plan for the future is, as Brian says there, start earning money from people in multiple countries. How do you do that? Well, you can do it online. So a big part of my business is going online, where I'm giving real value, and I'm going to be doing it online. I also travel, so I am going to New Zealand and Australia in the beginning of next year. I am going to Canada in August next year. So I am very conscious that I can't just have my foot in one country. Now, I am South African, and I will never leave. I said to Yvette, was it yesterday I said to Yvette, what did I actually say to you? I said to Yvette, maybe I should live in Canada. And I thought to myself, too cold. And besides, then I have to hang out with the Canadians and I'll miss the South Africans. And I don't dislike Canadians. I love Canadians. But there's a way when you're committed. Just remember this. That's one of my favorite quotes from Tony. There is always a way when you're committed. So my invitation that I'm going to invite you to take away from the webinar from me tonight, and I'll hand over to Brian in a moment. Here's what I invite you to do. What action steps can you take right now? Start using your mind power. Start using the affirmation. I am tremendously successful. I am financially independent and earn at least X amount per month. What I actually am just deciding, Brian, as a result of listening to you and your affirmation, I need to have an affirmation that I'm going to create for people around investing. Now, you can create your own one. You know, I invest my money wisely and reap rich rewards from my investments. There it is. I've just created a quick one for you. I invest my money wisely and earn and reap rich rewards from my investments. I'm still learning it. I invest my money wisely and reap rich rewards from my investments, because you want to start programming. The other thing is start that savings account. Brian is 100% right. I got it from John DeMartini as well. For the last 3 years, I started out by putting away what I regarded as a small amount. I haven't actually been increasing it by 10%. So that's one thing I'm going to do immediately. Tomorrow, I am increasing my savings amount, because that, when I look at how much that has grown, and I haven't even increased it, I didn't know about the increase it by 10%. Go and apply these techniques. For those of you who want to join me on the weekend, next weekend, come and immerse yourself and hang out with 300 other people who are committed to growing their money. You have to be prepared to put yourself in the situation. But do something differently, because if you keep doing what you did, you keep getting what you got. And start thinking about how can you make money in multiple currencies. You need to start sowing the seed right now, because it might take you a year, it might take you 2 years, but there's always a way when you're committed.
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, guys, you know, I seriously suggest you come to this event, because we need to have conversations around money. And, you know, both Donna and Rob are going to really work your mind around money and your whole sort of conscious behavior. And, you know, I'm going to talk predominantly around business. I'll address this topic more in terms of how do we make a business international? What are the kind of opportunities out there? How can we find different opportunities? But for those that own businesses, we're going to talk about how do we make businesses wealth creators, which is very, very important. Guys, seriously, for that nominal amount, I know not all, I mean, we invited both our audiences from all over the country, and people have snuck in from all over the world as well. But you know, do yourself a favor, come spend this weekend with us. It'll change your life. And this is the right time to do that. So, Rob, thanks again for putting it on, because I know we've been talking about this for the whole year, but you just jumped up and said, I'm going to do it, and you just made it happen.
Well, sometimes you have to take action. I just decided, you know what, let's just do it. And actually why I did it is I realized, who doesn't want to make more money? And I mean, I often say in my seminars, is there anyone who doesn't want to make more money? And very few people do put up their hand, and I always say, that's awesome, please come and work for me, I need volunteers. That's a joke. Who doesn't want to make more money? Your success helps lots of people. Your failure helps no one. I love that. So I'm going to finish with that. Your success helps lots of people. Your failure helps no one. It is your duty to succeed. So stop being selfish and succeed. So guys, I look forward to seeing many of you next weekend. I know many of you are already being there. We've got about over 200 people on the event. We've got another 50 to 100 places. I look forward to seeing you. For those of you I won't be seeing, please make sure that you don't just leave this webinar without taking some form of action towards your financial empowerment. The lady who checked out, that's the last thing you want to do. Because if you check out, that's not taking responsibility. Taking responsibility is put yourself in the situation. I was earning 5,000 Rand a month when I started this journey. I was driving a Volkswagen Beetle. I'm still nowhere near some of the guys who are in the same field as me. And that is why I always go and I surround myself. I mean, I was at a Tony Robbins event, a wealth mastery event. And when these guys were speaking about the amount of money they were earning in pounds and the Ferraris, and I mean, I actually felt puny. And I actually wanted to leave. And then I thought, no, that's exactly why you need to stay. You want to listen and speak to, mentor with the wealthy. Speak to the people who have walked the road. Take advice from people who have produced the results. Don't take advice on how to invest from people who are sitting in the same trouble as you are. You want to learn from people who've walked the road. So do take some form of action towards your transformation. So guys, I want to thank you, and I trust you've gained a lot from this webinar. Thank you for your feedback. Please let me know if you've gained a lot from this webinar. We will continue to bring you the best we possibly can, because that's my commitment. I'm committed to transformation of this country. And so it's an absolute pleasure to share this. Brian, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom, and we look forward to having you on the weekend. Anything you'd like to say in closure?
No, I think just backing what Rob says, you know, do something. And you know, I remember when I first heard the savings thing, I literally went on my computer, opened a savings account, put $100 in. That's what I could afford at the time. And I started that commitment of it. And I worked out a whole schedule. So I had an alarm that would tell me in my calendar every 3 months, increase it. And so I went. And so you guys can do that straight away.
Famida, you said you don't have it. I remember you saying you don't have it. You must find 100 Rand. Find 100 Rand and just start the journey now. Yeah. Don't wait. Start now. Because that's what stops you. In fact, someone was on my mind path this weekend in Durban. I forget, a beautiful Indian lady, and she had 2 of her daughters, 14 and 16. And when they were at the introductory talk, I said to their mother, I don't know if you were there, you weren't there, but I said to their mother, do your daughters a favor. Open a savings account for them. What do you call it? Interest bearing, but the one that with compound interest. What do you call the one with compound interest? The one that, like a money market.
Yeah.
I said to open a money market that gives you compound interest and start saving, even if it's 50 Rand each a month. Give them this gift now, 30 years from now. Because I heard about this at the age of 30 and I never started. I only started it 3 years ago. And I could kick myself when I realized what compound interest does. So instead of kicking yourself, just do it. Open a bloody savings account for 50 Rand a month or 100 Rand a month. I'm sorry if I sound preachy, but I didn't do it. So I'm actually talking to me because it took me 15 years to do something I knew I should have done. And 15 years is a lot to do. So guys, thank you so much. As you all know, if I had my way, I'd stay with you until 11 o'clock answering questions and chatting to you. But it's been an absolute pleasure being with you. Thank you so much. We had close to 400 people on the webinar, which is amazing. Thank you for tuning in. From my side, I want to say it's been a pleasure being with you. I look forward to being with you next week. Go well, and don't forget to be awesome.
Thanks, guys. Ciao for now.
Bye.